the translations are out for My Hero Academia Manga chapter 396, and let's just say that it has finally begun. The final fight between All For One and All Might, and let's just say that it starts off with a bang. And you'll get to see why that is the case, but first, right after this. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Drew, and I'm here to do my manga review for My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 396, titled A Quirkless Fight. And with that title in mind and what we're getting in this chapter primarily focuses on the fight between All For One and One For All. The fight between All Might and All For One that was set up multiples of chapters ago is finally coming into fruition, and this is going to be an amazing show. And I apologize if I sound a little bit sickly right now. I am getting over a cold, but I'm still going to be redoing my review for this chapter to the best of my ability. So let's dive into this chapter and talk about how amazing this chapter is, not only for the characters, but also for the story. And to start off, we get a little bit of recontextualization for something that we knew for a while, which is the premonition that Night Eye had, and how Night Eye saw that his future, in reference to All Might, was going to be a horrible one because he was going to die a gruesome death by the hands of a villain. And how All Might puts together that, oh yeah, he's probably talking about All For One. And the fact that All For One is in this young state, yeah, it makes sense that Night Eye wouldn't know who this villain is. So it's cool that we get that recontextualization with the current story, also setting up the idea that yes, this was going to be an inevitability. Because All Might himself says that he does not know if he stopped that future that Night Eye saw. So for people that thought that this was not something that was built upon with the past parts of the story, they are a little bit more eating their words because this was definitely set up. And set up it was, because not only is this setup amazing, but the suit that he is wearing is amazing as well. Because within the context of the chapter, it seems as if he is going to have this battle suit, which is actually called Armored All Might, and the design itself looks like what All Might looked like in his prime, with most likely going to be red, white, and blue, but also having some antenna on his head that looks like his little yellow antenna, but also having his entire face open to show off his smiling face. And not only that, but we also get to see how it wraps around his body in this very cool mechanical way, but also potentially showing that this armor may either come completely from the suitcase or in combination with the suitcase in the car. But either way, this is a package deal when it comes to this suit with relation to the car itself, because the car is going to play a large part in this battle if you didn't know. And we get to see the reactions of Tsukachi, as well as we get a little flashback of what happened after All Might left, and how Tsukachi really does not have the faith that he should have in his best friend All Might, and how he believes that even with a suit like this, that it will do nothing against someone like All For One, that no support item ever created will be able to go against him. But you know who does see this is La Brava, who takes the advantage to say, start stream, and literally have the stream of the fight between All For One and All Might be seen around the world. As well as All Might wanted to record this as well. And let me just say this, there is a fun reference to Bleach within this chapter, most likely, where you have La Brava saying, start stream, as you have the officer saying, hey, wait 1 second, this isn't a Bankai, stop saying it like that. So it's fun that Horikoshi is not only referencing his own series, but also referencing Bleach. But what is more important is how Tsukachi has this idea that just because All Might doesn't have a quirk, that he has no chance against All For One, and how he does not believe that this fight will last even more than a few minutes, let alone a few seconds. And with the reveal of this chapter being set 20 minutes before the Toga Twice clones disappear, the implication is that this fight is actually potentially going to take place over that entire span of time. And within this chapter alone, Tsukachi is proven wrong by All Might himself. Because we get into the battle proper, and you just have All For One who looks at All Might in this moment and thinks to himself that, yo, I know you're playing me, but you're right. And he just goes in for the attack. And this is where we get a little bit more into understanding why All Might is able to fight the way that he is, but also really showing his development and growth throughout the story. Because as All For One goes in for an attack, we have All Might call for Hercules, the name of his car, and says the word red as a big laser electric light beam strikes the entire shield, destroys a whole bunch of buildings as you have All Might getting out of this destroyed, hardened cocoon, which is going to play a little bit more into what we see later on, with All Might leaving the cocoon as he gets information that the suit that he is wearing right now has been depleted by 66% and that it won't be able to protect him from another attack from All For One. And this point is probably going to be building up to what's going to happen later on in the fight when the suit potentially gets destroyed, or implying that All For One is only going to be able to get one hit on All Might due to the strategy that he is implementing in this fight. Because post that moment, All For One is just going wild, trying to attack All Might, and is trying to understand why he continues to smile in this fight, and how the way that All Might is fighting in this way is only capable of being done so when he had the power of One For All. But we see that he implements a lot more strategy in this fight, using Black Whip, Charge Bolt, as well as reeling himself in with Cellophane, and summoning most likely a piece of Hercules, which he calls Build Up Sugar Man. And if you've noticed with all of these naming conventions, all of them are named after either moves or quirks created by his fellow students in Class 1A. Cellophane with Sero, Sugar Man with Sato, Charge Bolt with Kaminari, and most importantly, Black Whip and the final move of this chapter coming from his own mentee, Deku. And you have All Might not just fighting using raw power of the suit alone, but using the strategies that he most likely learned from his fellow students, that taught him potentially how to fight differently. Because at this moment, All Might is using strategy that he has never used. All Might, as said by All For One, just went straight in for punches and kicks because of the power of One For All. But now that he no longer has that power, he has to fight differently. He has to fight more strategically, and he's fighting a lot more like Deku, using different quirks in tandem, not necessarily just punching and kicking, but trying to immobilize and use a lot more strategy. And this really shows not only has All Might inspired and lit the torch inside of the other students, but vice versa, they were able to light a torch inside of him that was able to allow him to do better even without a quirk. And he even says as much in this fight when it comes to the strategy of All For One, where his strategy is primarily big bombastic attack, then go in and take a quirk. But however, that strategy does not affect those who are quirkless. And that implication is that people who have quirks are most likely to keep their distance from All For One, who would attempt to steal their quirk, leaving them open to a large scale attack from afar. But because All Might doesn't have a quirk, he doesn't have to worry about those long distance attacks, because he's always going to go in for close quarters combat, which All For One is not really prominent in. And we see that throughout the series, more or less, rarely does he actually do one-on-one fight, because the last time that he actually fought against All Might face to face and literally like close to close, a mano, he was straight up defeated. And even against Endeavor, when Endeavor got close up to him, he nearly killed All For One. So this really shows the strategic mind that All Might has, and that he's probably the only character who could have deduced this strategy due to the relationship that he had with All For One. Even after all of this, approaching the end of this chapter, you just have Tsukachi, who comes to a realization that what he is seeing right now is not just a man who's trying to protect them. And how he says that even though he knows that this is probably going to be his last fight, that he wanted to fight, and that he came up with this suit because of the friends and the family that he made in America and the bonds that they formed, where we get the first reveal of a My Hero Academia movie original character, Melissa Shield. And with this reveal, it pretty much confirms that the movies, if not the characters in the movies, are canonical to the My Hero Academia manga. As you have All Might himself declaring how he's going to use these gifts bestowed upon him to smash All For One once and for all. And then the chapter begins to end with All Might asking Tsukachi that because he's his best friend and that he's known him for years, that would he actually believe that All Might would go into a fight knowing that he'll lose? No. All Might always goes into fights that he knows that he can win, as we see that he uses an attack created by Deku, shoot style smash, with the final page of him literally kicking All For One in the face with enough force to potentially begin sending him backward. And the implication is that he's just smashing into All For One so many times, pulling him in for another smash, kicking him away, pulling him in, kicking him again, constantly and repeatedly as the chapter ends. And let's just say, oh my gosh, this chapter was amazing. Not only is the art even more on point in this chapter, when it comes to the suit aesthetics, when it comes to the action, when it comes to the strategy and how this fight isn't just a punching fest, how there's a lot more strategy used and how all of that strategy looks amazing, but how this strategy is really showing how All Might has grown, how he has learned from his students, has learned from Deku and incorporated their fighting styles into his own, and how even though he is quirkless, he still has the ability to fight on because of the connections that he's built over the years with Melissa Shield, who's confirmed in this chapter, and most likely her father David Shield, with the students of Class 1A, as well as Tsukachi himself. And the idea that in this way, even though he is fighting All For One by himself, he's actually not fighting All For One alone. He is fighting All For One alongside everyone else that has supported him up until this moment. That this victory isn't going to be a victory just by All Might, but a combined victory by everyone that supported him and how many people he's supported vice versa. So this chapter really just shows how this is going to be All Might's swan song, and that what is going to determine whether or not he's going to die a gruesome death or die a hero's death is going to be the connections and just who All Might is as a character in his core. But overall, I really do enjoy this chapter, and also just obviously this is most likely a reference to the fact that he is wearing a Iron Man-like suit, or potentially a suit that we see that Batman has worn in some of the more recent comics. But either way, it looks amazing, and I think that Horikoshi is going to do some amazing stuff with this suit, as well as be probably the most creative he's ever been in a combat situation in My Hero Academia with this fight. Also, once again, foreshadowing for this occurring is that they literally built an All Might mecha suit. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about the chapter for now. I think that this chapter was amazing. It really shows the theme works of like teamwork and cooperation being the main drivers for the story, as well as just showing how much All For One is going to underestimate the power that All Might has, whether or not he's quirkless, while also All Might really showing the world that no matter what, quirkless or not, he is still going to be the hero that comes out victorious in the end, even if it means that he dies at the end of this fight, but knowing for a fact that he took out All For One in the process. But yeah, this is all I really have to say on this chapter. What did you think of the chapter? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Do you still feel kind of meh about All Might wearing this Iron Man-like suit? Leave your thoughts down below. I would love to read them. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!